I was at an event recently, and I was surrounded by people. And somehow I felt so out of place, uncomfortable, and nothing was said to me to make me uncomfortable. Like no one called me out or anything like that. My body just kept telling me something isn't right for you. And maybe you've been there when you're sitting there and like your breathing is shallow. Maybe you're not breathing fully, or you just feel uncomfortable and you feel nervous or anxious. And like for me, like I can almost like feel the blood running through the backs of my arms and my shoulders, and can feel my nervous system come alive. Like, whoo, something is amiss. But in this moment, I was quiet. And it wasn't because I didn't have anything to say. And it wasn't because I didn't know what to do. I just felt like I didn't want to take up space. So if I'm invisible, if I'm quiet, and this is what hit me later thinking about it. I was thinking back to it, and I'm like, what was all that? And trying to reflect on me and trying to figure myself out, right? And I wasn't really rejected. No one said anything to me to make me feel rejected. I was more so just like bracing myself about like was coming, nothing was coming. And then I thought about like, so I'm at this event, what does it feel like when I'm at home? So then I'm thinking about what it's like at home. Same 10 fingers, same arms, same shoulders, it's the same body. Exact same person. But my posture is just different. At home, I don't breathe uncomfortably. I'm not anxious. I'm not nervous. I don't weigh my words. It's my home. I'm just real. It's my home. I don't even monitor my tone. Sometimes that's good. And then sometimes. But I stopped caring about what people think. My kids know the real me. My wife knows the real me. And that's when it really started stirring in me that's what belonging does. You feel safe to be yourself. And it makes me wonder how many times we go through life lacking confidence. Just living everywhere like we're not at home. Everywhere we go, we're not at home. We don't feel safe. We don't feel. And so here's a question I want to start with today. Why do people settle for living like a renter in God's house? Now, I'm not talking about a church building. I'm not talking about a church space. I'm talking about God's house. I'm talking about living with yourself with Jesus. If our bodies are the temple, Jesus is walking with us, in us, right? Why do we settle for living like a renter? In the house that he owns. I've seen people afraid of being removed from their jobs, careers, afraid to make any mistakes. I've seen people obey from a place of fear. And I've even seen people apologize for their own existence. And it makes me wonder about the pain, because most people, I don't think most people are living rebellious. I think most people are just living too small, afraid of being, afraid of the honesty, afraid of in Romans chapter 8, Paul reveals with God it's safe. It's like home, and it's like we belong. We start here in verse 15. It says, "For you did not receive the spirit of slavery." And I want to stop right here. Check this out. He names the problem first. You did not receive the spirit of slavery. The spirit of slavery. He's saying you don't get saved to be managed by fear. Thinking of the children of Israel when you're God's people, but the Egyptians have you doing all of what they want, you build their. The Egyptians have them, you eat our food. I got bombs going off in our way. The Egyptians, they say, you do it our way. You do it it sounds so religious. But this is not why Jesus died on a cross. He didn't get saved for you to be managed by the fear. A slavery mentality says, I obey so I don't get punished. I'm going to just do this so I don't suffer the consequences of somebody's wrath. Or a false self says, I perform to make sure that I stay safe. I want to make sure that I stay safe, so I'll go through the motions. Or even something like, and I thought about this in a religious survival sense. If I look holy enough, I'll feel whole, feel good. But here's the thing: God doesn't just come and rescue us from our sin and then chain us to anxiety. That's pure anxiety. Anxiety is felt, but it's not our finality. It's not the final word. And sometimes we see it as home, but Paul's writing here, Jesus is telling us today that true freedom and safety is in Him. It's in Him. And verse 15 continues, he says, to fall back into fear. So, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. So he says, if fear is driving you, thinking about the title today, Heirs of the Kingdom, if fear is driving you, you're not living from an inheritance, you're living from your history. If it's fear that's the motivator, it's living from history, not our future. Fall back, implying that you can go back to an old system. And again, I think about the Israelites, and again, I think about how they were enslaved to the Egyptians, and then they get in the wilderness, but their mindset in the wilderness kept them stuck. 40 years. What do you do for 40 years? Fear. We can't go back because of the Egyptians. We can't go forward because of the sea. Fear, fear. And all the while, yeah, but you got to understand you have the creator of the world on your side. There's nothing to fear because he can part the waters and let you walk across on dry land. It's people don't just fall back because they don't love God. People fall back because fear is familiar. It's what I've always known. It's what I've always been around. It's what I've always thought. And fear feels like control. I got this. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to take care of this. I got this under control, right? Fear feels like productivity. If I can just do this, fear feels like at least I'm doing something. But here's what's crazy is fear is a former master that's trying to reclaim us. It tries to run our decisions, the decisions we make. It tries to dictate our silence, when we should speak up and when we should not, and when we should, and it's used to keep us small. We learned it in church. Don't mess up. Don't ask questions. Don't disappoint God. That's a big one for me. I don't want to disappoint God in this. Fear. It's fear-based. You learned it in school. Make sure you blend in. Don't fail. Don't stand out. We learned it maybe where we grew up, just to keep the peace. And don't rock the boat. And make sure you earn approval. Work for it. Make sure you whatever. But here's what I love. In God's house, fear doesn't even get a key. It doesn't get a voice. It doesn't get to call us by our past. Fear doesn't get to say, because in God's house, watch this, children don't shrink. They stand. When you're a child of God, you can stand knowing who your Father is. Scripture says perfect love casts out all fear. In God's house, love casts out fear. It doesn't manage fear. It doesn't negotiate with fear. It drives it out. You can't negotiate with fear. It drives it out. Paul goes on to say, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons. And so now he gets into who you are. Adoption as sons. Adoption is not improvement. It's not God taking us on as a project. The Spirit doesn't adopt us only. It fathers us. And a true father nurtures. I think of some of the things that you're doing with your children. Nurture. I'm gonna help you understand this. I'm gonna teach you how life operates when you say lying. Okay, let me walk you through this, because when you lie, you break relationships. It's not about the lying. This breaks relationships. And when you break relationships, you end up feeling isolated. So it's not about the lying, the being deceiving. It's about breaking that trust barrier, breaking that, right? And then we teach them, and we're believing sometimes that God is God, right? But I wonder sometimes if we haven't been receiving God as Father. Seeing him in the light of, Dad, here, I want to walk with you, want to nurture you, want to help you, I want to help you understand. And sometimes it's not a struggle with sin. It's struggling with what it looks like to just be a son. So he continues on. He says, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. And Abba is not a performance word here. I love Abba comes out when you're not pretending. It's not a fancy word. It's an intimate word. Expresses dependence, trust. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, I was always taught to say Lord with like posture, stand tall and military-like, Lord. But being a son teaches us to say, Abba. It's honesty. It's openness. It's trust. Because adoption doesn't request perfection. Adoption gives us permission for honesty. It gives us permission to be honest, permission to be real, permission to come to the Father and say, look, this is what I'm actually struggling with. I was thinking the other day, I kind of had to redirect it a little bit. They said, this and this. And I said, and I'm listening to what they're saying, and I said, well, hold on. I think maybe there could be more to this. Because what about this aspect of it? Right? It's permission to be honest. And then the Father just walks with us in that honesty and says, well, hold on a minute. What about this part of it? What I love about Jesus is he doesn't come in shaming. He doesn't come in, it's not a request for perfection. He doesn't come in guns blazing. When Jesus comes in, he embraces the honest moments. He embraces the incompleteness. He embraces the out of order, the incomplete. He embraces it. Your deepest healing begins when your prayer stops being polished and starts being honest. It's the honesty. It's the honesty in the prayer. I think about the vain repetition Jesus was talking about with the prayers, and I think like how much of that vain repetition when he's talking about that is he referring to a lack of honesty, a lack of realness, prayers that just are void, prayers that are just Abba Father is permission to be real. Abba Father is permission to be relational. Abba Father is permission to be close. And if we're not honest with God, maybe we're just not seeing ourselves as sons, daughters. Paul goes on to write in verse 16, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit. And this part right here bears witness. A witness is confirmation. It's assurance. If I'm on the stand and I need defense, a witness can get me out. Oh, if there's a witness, he can confirm. It's a testimony. It's court worthy, meaning the Spirit can interrupt the courtroom in our mind. The shame cycle in our mind. You're not qualified. And then the Spirit says, I chose you. Not qualified to be a father. Made too many mistakes. And the Spirit says, I chose you to raise those 3 kids. You won't win you won't win identity by arguing with shame. You win by agreeing with the Spirit. Because identity isn't in the self-talk, it's in the Spirit assurance. It's in the witness that's in us. Why? Because the Spirit is declaring it. Shame tries to debate it, tries to argue it, but the Spirit testifies. You don't defeat shame by being louder than it. You defeat it by just agreeing with the Spirit. What does the Spirit say? Paul goes on to write that we are children of God. And he doesn't say employees. He doesn't say volunteers. He says children. I ask myself, do you relate to God like a child or like a employee, a staff, a volunteer? How do we relate to God? Because a staff member, an employee, fears evaluation. Ooh. What's my one-on-one with my Father going to look like? So I got to make sure I perform. What's my... Children, though? Children live from affection. Children live from affection, from confidence, from the love they're given, from the love they are given. And verse 17 says, and if children, then heirs. Heirs of God. And fellow heirs with Christ. Heirs means you didn't earn it. If someone is lost in our family and you're set to receive an inheritance. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, you know, I may be receiving an inheritance. And it was from a distant cousin. You didn't do anything to earn that. It was who you were. It's who you are. The gospel is not just that Jesus died for you. It's that you're chosen for sonship, for adoption. And I feel like sometimes we're busy chasing religious activity, and Paul writes here telling us to live from inheritance. Heirs. Heirs of Christ. It means the future is already settled. It means the future is already written. The future is already done. And he continues on, provided we suffer with him in order that we may also be glorified with him. And Paul isn't selling easy Christianity here. He's connecting adoption to endurance. Enduring. Because suffering doesn't cancel the inheritance. Sometimes that suffering can get out of whack in our minds, but it doesn't cancel the inheritance. It confirms the story. Suffering is just one part, but glory is another part. And what do we do when we revert to the fear, Here's a question. What do we revert to when we're in the most pain? When we're in the most pain, what do we run to? Pain reveals what we actually trust in. There's a scripture that talks about being tried by fire. Gold is tried by fire. The hotter the fire gets, the purer the gold. Sometimes in our life, the hotter our suffering might feel, the more purified we're becoming. The most uncomfortable therapy sessions, for myself, have been the most fruitful. Not because I enjoyed it. I hated every minute of it. Walking through my inconsistencies, my flaws, my character blemishes. And then as I walk through it, I start learning and I start, oh yeah, that is me. Why am I running from that? Why am I running from that character flaw? How come I've never acknowledged it? Because when I acknowledge it and I accept it and embrace it, now it doesn't have the dominion over me. So where does pain lead us? Where is pain taking us? Where does pain move us? Suffering doesn't cancel the inheritance. It reveals who we are. It reveals it. Romans chapter 8, same chapter, just farther down, verse 37, Paul says, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him." Through Jesus, who loved us. Not we might be conquerors, not we will be conquerors if we behave. He says we are more than conquerors. And notice he didn't say we're more than conquerors through our discipline. He didn't say we're more than conquerors through striving. He says we're more than conquerors through him who loved us. That means victory, true victory, flows from love, not striving. True victory flows from a place of love. Don't conquer. You don't conquer by effort. You conquer because you belong. You conquer because it's safe with Him. I've witnessed serving God like we're trying to earn room in God's house. But the gospel is God opening the door and saying, "Why are you standing outside like a stranger? Come in." We call shame sometimes humility. Sometimes we feel shame and it can be justified. Maybe a religious justification is, well, I want to make sure I stay humble. Or we call sometimes that fear that we struggle with discernment. I'm scared of this, and so really I'm just being wise, discerning. But really, I would submit to you today, maybe it's slavery. Because Romans 8 says, you're not renting here. Paul's writing, you're not a renter. You can take a breath. You can feel safe. You're an heir in the kingdom. This is your inheritance.